Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing High School is an institution established by the government for training Japan's best students. Kiyotaka Ayana begins attending the school and is enrolled in Class 1D. Class D homeroom teacher Sai Chabashira explains the point system where everybody gets a monthly allowance of 100,000 points. These points can be used as money at local shops, with 1 point equaling 1 yen. She also warns the students that they are judged on merit. Ayana begins navigating through the system, being careful about how he spends his points while becoming friends with the sociable Kikyo Kushida, and then attempting to become acquainted with the aloof outsider Suzune Horikita. In an attempt to become friends, Ayana brings Suzune to a cafe where only girls meet, having secretly arranged for Kikyo and 4 other classmates to be there. However, Suzune sees right through their plan and just frackin' leaves. As the month of April passes, the majority of Class D carelessly spends their points and slacks off in class, causing Ayana to be suspicious. On May 1st, the D-class students are surprised to find out that they are not given an allowance. Sai explains that their allowance depends on merit, and having ignored their studies, the class receives no points for the month. Sai Chabashira sheds some light on how the point system is supposed to work. All 4 first-year classes are ranked by merit. Class D, which scored 0 points last month, has a chance to be promoted to Class C if they perform exceptionally well on their midterms. Sai also warns them that anyone that fails one more exam will be expelled. Now, fully aware of the system, everybody is taking their studies a lot more seriously, except for the 3 students with the lowest 3 scores: Kensudo, Kanji Ike, and Haruki Yamauchi. Suzune treats Ayana to an expensive lunch as a bribe for bringing aboard the 3 lowest scores to the library to study. Ayana and Kikyo succeed in convincing them to come to the study group. However, they leave immediately when Suzune is very meaningful to them. What? That night, Ayana goes out for a drink and overhears Suzune talking to her older brother Manabu Horikita, the student council president. Manabu tries to hit her after a disagreement. He's thrashing her opinion of isolation being independent and says that this has caused her placement in Class D. Ayana then intervenes and dodges several of Manabu's strikes with ease. Manabu is impressed and questions Ayana fighting style. He then remembers and reveals that Ayana scored a 50 on his entry exams and recent quiz. He asks if it was intentional, but Ayana replies it was merely a coincidence. Manabu voices his surprise that his sister made a friend, but she denies it. Manabu voices his disappointment and leaves. Suzune awkwardly apologizes to Ayana for what he saw, but he doesn't mind. She compliments his martial arts proficiency. He tells her that he only engaged in non-martial arts activities like tea ceremonies, playing the piano, and doing calligraphy. She asks him whether he intentionally got the same exact half scores each time, but he doesn't give her a clear answer. Why would he? He asks her if she was really done with the study group, to which she states that those who fail don't concern her. Ayana asks whether it was this distant and cold behavior of hers that got her placed in Class D, but of course, she don't answer. The midterm exams arrive, and Class D as a whole performs very well. Some even score the highest in their first year's class. Class D gets the result of their exam, and everybody passes except for Ken, who missed passing by 1 point. Frickin' Ken. It is revealed that the grades were the result of Ayana spending 15,000 points to buy the questions for an old exam from an upperclassman 3 days prior to the exam. We are shown that a few days ago, he went to invite Kensudo to the group, but finds him being bullied by students of Class C. A student named Honami Ichinose intervenes and tells him to stop, or she'll call security on them for fighting on school grounds. Afterward, Ayana asks Ken to join the study group, but he refuses and goes to basketball practice because he's a Chad. Later, Ayana approaches Sai and asks whether equality exists. She says that it does not. He then offers to pay her with his points for Ken to pass. She accepts, but wants 100,000 points in exchange. Unable to pay the price alone, Ayana offer is joined by Suzune, who offers to pay half of the price to buy the missing point. Amused by this, Sai accepts their offer and tells them to inform Ken that he will not be expelled. That night, Kikyo organizes a little party to celebrate in Ayana room, to his dismay. As everyone enjoys themselves, Kikyo asks if he helped Ken out, but he deflects the credit to Suzune. After the party, Kikyo leaves but forgets her cell phone. Ayana follows her to give it back, only to find out how she has an envious and cruel thinking personality. Having discovered her secret, Kikyo demands Ayana to keep it a secret, or else she will accuse him of raping her. She forcefully makes him touch her breasts and says she'll be using the fingerprints as help. He thinks back to his previous encounters with her bubbly persona, wondering if it was all just an act. Kikyo then takes a deep breath and returns to her bubbly self, stating that they have another secret to keep. Another one. In Class 1B, the scores of a recent quiz are given out and the class did well. Many thank Honami Ichinose for her tutoring, and she internally voices her desire for her class to reach 1A. Sometime later, Ayano Koji reflects on his recent meeting with Kikyo as he goes to the elevator and sees Kikyo with Suzune. When they get off, Honami appears and happily greets Kikyo before she meets Ayano Koji. After a brief discussion about his relationship with Kikyo, she asks if they received their points, but they say they didn't. On July 1st, Class D's point distribution is put on hold due to an incident the previous day. Ken Sudo and 3 students of Class C had a scuffle where Ken was attacked. He fought back in self-defense, but they have to find a witness to clear his name before the hearing next week. If they don't, Ken will be liable for his actions, resulting in the class receiving no points for the month. This dude is such a liability. Later, Honami suddenly asks Ayano Koji for help. She tells him that she might get asked out on a date. What's so bad about that? She says she needs him to pretend to be her boyfriend in order to avoid hurting the feelings of the person who sent her a love letter. The person that gave her the letter is her friend Chihiro Shiranami, who arrives at the scene and sees them. Chihiro asks if he is her boyfriend. Ayano Koji quickly states that he is simply a friend. He tells Honami to be honest about her feelings. Chihiro had struggled to gather the courage to express her feelings to her, and she should respect that. After the girls talk it out, Honami apologizes to Ayano Koji for dragging him into the mess and tells him that she owes him a favor. The class posts messages asking for witnesses to the Ken incident. Class B joins in after Honami wished to repay Ayano Koji. She and her classmate Ryuji Kanzaki revealed that an anonymous person gave clues about the past of Daichi Ishizaki. He notices how Honami has an enormous number of points and wonders why that is. The group later learns that their classmate Airi Sakura was there and captured the incident with her camera. That night, Ayano Koji and Kikyo talk about how Ken's rough behavior is making it hard to clear his name. The next day, they approach Sakura, but she runs away, dropping her camera in the process. Sakura asks Ayano Koji and Kikyo to accompany her to the electronics store to get the camera repaired. The store clerk asks her to give out her contact information. Seeing how she is so nervous, Ayano Koji gives his information instead. Afterward, they sit and talk. Kikyo goes to freshen up, and Ayano Koji is left alone with Sakura. After a brief silence, she says that she doesn't understand what she should do. He tells her not to burden herself with a decision she'll regret. The 3 split up after that. Kikyo visits Ayano Koji in his room and shows him pictures of Sakura, who is revealed to be an internet model. Just then, she gets a call from Sakura, who says that she will help them with the case. The hearing is led by Manabu, which throws Suzune off guard. Both classes give their testimonies accusing each other of instigating the fight. The initial ruling goes in Class C's favor. After staying silent out of fear for her brother's presence, Suzune speaks up. She asks about the circumstances of the fight and points out that a 3-against-1 fight doesn't end in injuries for the side with 3 people. She then presents Sakura as a witness who provides evidence of her presence at the scene. She captured the fight in the background during a photo shoot. However, the evidence only proves that she was present and does not clear Sudo's name. The Class C homeroom teacher, Sakagami, proposes a compromise to suspend Sudo for 2 weeks and the 3 Class C students for 1 week. Class D rejects the proposal, resulting in an argument that's broken up by Manabu. Realizing that one side is clearly lying, Manabu ends the hearing. He states that he will make his decision the next day. Expulsion is also on the table now. Sakura apologizes for taking so long to help, but Ayano Koji says her input was still helpful. Manabu states that he expected a strategy from Ayano Koji and Suzune, but Ayano Koji shrugs this off. Manabu then tries to strike Ayano Koji, but he swiftly dodges, and Sakura and Suzune are quite surprised, to say the least. Poor guy, he hasn't landed a single hit this whole show. Airi Sakura is seen getting too many letters from a person that seems to be utterly obsessed with her. He keeps proclaiming his love for her, and it's starting to scare her. Suzune and Ayano Koji are investigating the stairwell where Suzune discovers something important. Later, Ayano Koji arrives in the classroom where Sakura is waiting. She decides to ask him something, but he receives a notification from Kikyo and has to leave. He and Suzune trick the 3 boys from Class C who accused Ken of attacking them into meeting them at the stairwell. They try to leave, but Suzune forces them to stay, showing the cameras in the area. This worries them as it would show they instigated the fight. They question why the council hasn't brought this up, but Ayano Koji states that they know and are just waiting to see what the students are planning as a test. Suzune tells them they should withdraw their accusations if they wish to save themselves from being expelled. So, they decide to withdraw the accusation. Elsewhere, Sakura walks through the school store and feels that someone is following her. She tries to elude them, but the person continues following them. Meanwhile, Ayano Koji is talking to Honami, promising to repay her for the points he borrowed from her for the cameras. He soon gets a call from Airi and hears her sound terrified on call before it is abruptly ended. Turns out Sakata's phone was knocked away as she is held against a wall by someone as Ayano tries to call her back. The person holding Sakata is the store clerk from episode 5 who is revealed to be a crazy stalker obsessed with her online pictures. She tries to get her phone, but the man pins her down and threatens to put her pictures on the internet if she doesn't comply with his orders, even though they already are. He notices her traumatized expression and gets enraged by it. He starts to force himself on her as she tries to fight back. Just as the man is about to assault her, a camera flash goes off, stopping him in his tracks. The man looks up and sees Ayano with his phone, having taken a picture of him in the act. As the man tries to lie, he is unconvinced by pointing out the cameras have caught the whole incident on footage as the man takes notice of them and gets promptly scared. The man tries to run away, but Honami blocks him and security apprehends him. Honami and the guards take the man away from the scene. She apologizes for dragging him into the mess as she was unable to do anything, but he tells her that her life as an idol may bring about such drama. She discards her glasses and tells Ayano that she will live a life without lies as he tells her to ask him for advice and sticks out his hand to help her up. On the school's roof, Sai is smoking leisurely before Suzune joins her. The teacher asks why Class C withdrew their complaint. Sai informs Suzune that to enter Class A, she must be aware of the depths of Ayano. Suzune asks what she meant by that. The teacher draws light into Ayano amazing insight and cunning abilities, but was still placed in Class D anyway, meant for defects of the school. At another part of the school, Kakaru is angry at his followers for failing in their task to get Ken expelled, asking which withdrew the complaint, but he learns it was a unanimous decision. Later, Suzune meets up with Ayano and shows interest in knowing what goes on inside his head. He tells Suzune that he will help her reach her goal of getting to Class A. However, he sternly tells her to not pry into his life again. Suzune continues to study inside her dorm room through summer vacation. Ayano repeatedly calls her, asking her to go to the pool, and she reluctantly agrees to do so. On the night prior, Ayano, Ken Sudo, Kanji, Haruki, and Hideo meet to discuss preparations for peeping on the girls while in the changing room at the pool. During the trip to the pool, Suzune finds herself analyzing the many people around her. Meanwhile, Hideo observes the boys from the school's general storehouse while communicating using a transceiver and hand signals. Frackin' what is going on? After everybody is changed into their swimsuits, Haruki sneaks into the women's changing room as a janitor to secretly install cameras. He closes it for cleaning, but has trouble doing so, forcing Hideo to change the plans. Kanji goes in and installs them instead. However, Kakaru and students from Class C approach the changing room while Kanji is still inside. Needing help to escape, Ken comes to the entrance of the changing room to confront Kakaru in order to stall for time. Students from Class A arrive to start a fight with Kakaru's group. Manabu arrives at the scene as well, with Hideo alerting Ayano, who was aware of the plan, about the situation. He asks Suzune to stand on top of a diving platform to give a speech about Class D ascending to Class A someday. With the students distracted, Kanji escapes the changing room unnoticed. Shortly afterward, Suzune goes into the changing room to remove the SD cards from the cameras to foil the operation. Ayano explains how he used Suzune rather than convince his classmates not to do it so that they wouldn't do this behind his back. He then asks Suzune if she had fun with the others, but says that she didn't come to have fun. This causes him to push her into the pool, and she does the same to him in return. Other students start splashing water at her as well, thinking that it was a game. Later that night, Ayano sends Suzune an email with a picture of her and the others. For a class trip, all the first-year students are taken on a luxurious cruise ship. During a play, Ayano finds out from Sai that an unknown man had contacted the school asking for him to be expelled. Sai then offers to cover for him, though, only if he will start working to reach Class A, but he immediately refuses. The next day, he hangs out with Ken and his friends. He then meets with Suzune to discuss the trip's destination and purpose. He reveals that the school is taking them to a boarding house on an island owned by the school where they suspect an ulterior motive is at foot. Suzune is then approached by Kakaru about the security camera setup and tries to manipulate her. Elsewhere on the ship, many of the other students' and teachers' activities are shown, such as Rokusuke acting egotistical and arrogant as usual. Ichinose and her teacher Chie are getting a massage while discussing students to be wary of. After she mentions a few rather prominent students, Hoshinomiya suggests being also wary of Ayano from Class D. Later, Sakata is shown practicing how to speak to Ayano to ask him out on a date. However, when he appears, she she suddenly changes her mind and asks for his help in socializing with their classmates instead. She is happy when he says he'll help, which causes her to grab his hand out of joy. When Kikyo appears and sees them together, though, Sakura gets embarrassed and leaves. Kikyo and Ayanokoji then talk as he recalls her violent personality and tries to leave, but is stopped when she reverts to her darker personality. She tells him that she can sense his wariness toward her, which he confirms to be true. She then switches back to her cheerful personality and confesses that she will be lonely when left alone. Because, you know, you're lonely when you're alone. That makes complete sense. The next day, the teachers inform all the students the real reason behind the trip. They are required to take a survival test on a deserted island for a week. Okay, thank you. Class D review the resources they have so they can plan for survival and point hunting. The group first considers what to spend their S points on, as these points are transferred over after the test. The group then looks over what actions and events lose and gain points. The group walks through the forest to search for landmarks. They decide to disregard the issue for now and focus on finding an area to set camp. 9 people volunteer, who are then split into groups of 3 before they set off. Rokusuke is surprisingly acrobatic and outpaces Ayanokoji and Sakura enough to vanish from sight. The two alone find a path that leads to a cave that is one of the island's landmark locations. These locations are supposed to offer 1 bonus S point if the possession is declared by the class leader. It is also clarified that bonus points cannot be used until after the test on the island. Moreover, when a team identifies another class's leader correctly, they gain 50 points, and if they're incorrect, they lose 50 points. Thinking of this makes Ayanokoji hide with Sakura when Kohei and Yahiko exit the cave. After the Class A pair leave, Ayanokoji and Sakura look around the cave and then report back their findings. Ken, Kanji, and Haruki tells their class that they found a clear water source that they can camp next to. They decide to choose Suzune as their leader. The group begins to set camp, and Ayanokoji, Haruki, and Sakura look for resources until they stumble upon a wounded Mio Ibuki from Class C. The trio invite her back to the campsite to be tended. The group then eat the fruit that they picked and discusses what to do with Mio. Kikyo comes over to give Mio some fruit. Suddenly, Ken screams Rokusuke's name in anger. According to Teruhiko, Rokusuke was apparently not feeling well and went back to the boat, causing the class to lose 30 S points. Rokusuke is then seen climbing the anchor of the ship and admiring the beautiful moon. Just not fracking caring. Ayanokoji and Suzune go on a reconnaissance to see what the situation is at on other camps. Class B's camp is set near a waterfall that operates much like Class D's camp, but at a better location. Class A's camp is in a cave that is heavily guarded. Class C's camp is on the beach where, under Ryuen's leadership, all of the points are spent, and the classmates treat this test like a frackin' vacation. On the night of the 3rd day, somebody breaks into the girls' tent at the Class D camp and searches Mio's bag for her phone. On the 5th day, Kei Karuizawa finds out that her underwear was stolen. Are you fracking kidding me? Class D then conducts a bag search, and Yamauchi finds it in Nikke's bag. Ayanokoji takes it, and a pat-down search is conducted with Yosuke searching him. Yosuke reports that he does not have it, and he asks Ayanokoji to help find the actual culprit. Trust within Class D erodes, and girls ask Yosuke and Ayanokoji to help separate the boys' and girls' camps. The next day, Class D gathers food in advance of a rainstorm. Ayanokoji asks Suzune to show him her leader card in order to confirm whether the card Kohei was holding was really it. As they talk, Kikyo tells Mio and Haruki Yamauchi that the two appear close. Then Yamauchi approaches Suzune and puts mud in her hair to get a reaction from Ayanokoji, but this prompts Suzune to throw him to the ground. While Suzune goes away to wash off, somebody steals her leader card. Later, somebody starts a fire, and Mio uses this as an opportunity to sneak away from the camp. Suspecting that this was Mio's doing, Suzune and other Class D students search for her. Suzune finds out that Mio did steal the card. Mio attacks Suzune, defeats her because she's sick, and brings the card to a student that requested it. Class A and Class C are revealed to be working together when Mio gives them Suzune's leader card. Suzune's health deteriorates to the point where she faints, and Ayanokoji carries her to the teacher's camp. She's declared a dropout. On the final day, the classes guess the leaders of the groups. Ayanokoji then gives Yosuke a list of the other class leaders. At the assembly, Kakeru reveals that he secretly forged a pact with Kohei to transfer 200 test points worth of materials to Class A and the other teams' leaders' names with proof. The results are revealed, and the winner is Class D with 225 points, followed by Class B with 140, Class A with 120, and Class C with 0. The students return to the cruise ship, where Arisu Sakayanagi reveals that things went according to plan, making everybody mistrust Kohei to weaken his leverage over Class A. Ayanokoji explains to Suzune that he intentionally led Mio to steal the card, and he had Suzune withdraw so that he could make himself the leader. This ensured that Class A and Class C incorrectly guessed her as the leader. As for guessing the other leaders, because of how cautious Kohei was, Yahiko was really the Class A leader. He was also aware that Kakeru had not withdrawn, making him Class C's leader. Not wanting to jeopardize Class D's alliance with Class B, Ayano opted not to find Class B's leader. Suzune is in awe at all this and wonders what drives him to do it. He also set up for Suzune to get the credit so that everyone trusts her. He then gets a text from his teacher to meet in the ship's theater to talk. When he meets with Sai at the theater, she compliments him. She reveals that it was his father who requested he get expelled. Though he said Ayano would leave on his own accord, he meets again and he tells her that she needed allies. While she goes on, Ayano internally notes that he doesn't acknowledge her, Kikyo, or Yosuke as his allies. They are all merely pawns to help him win. He ends his monologue by stating that all that matters is his winning in the end. I just want to say how much I want to mock the titles of these episodes. The way they present it at the start of the show makes you think how serious they are about it, while in fact the plot is just a high school kid living the Batman life with a deadpan expression all the time.
In what way is Ayano like fracking Batman? Aside from him being edgy. Another W for me.
Season 2 picks up with the student council president as he listens to the report about how the island test, which was won by Class D, went. He speaks the name of the class as if he knew it was already going to happen, although he doesn't look to like them that much. The school's already up for the next challenge, and judging by how huge the ship they're in, it's not going to be good. Look at our boy, though, chilling here as if he's not planning to take over the world. Everyone else is having a jolly good old time in the ship. The girls are out for a swim, and the boys are letting their eyes have a feast. Kushida is not being her usual self, which is also her usual self because who frackin' knows what mood this woman is in at any given point in time. She tries to have some small talk with Horikita, who is visibly disgusted by the sight of her, and I can understand that. Hideta asks Ayano out for lunch with his buds, including Karuizawa, and he's interrupted by the woman before Ayano can even say anything. The PA then announces that the special test will begin shortly, and students will receive the respective emails. Majiya Tomiya, the Class A instructor, has called upon a few individuals to discuss the details of the special test. Among these few is Ayano, and the rest of them are surprised to see him there.
Aren't you calling him Ayano also? Alright, sorry for asking.
One more person is yet to join them there, and is none other than Karuizawa. She physically doesn't look like the person who is fit to sit in that circle.
What do you mean by that?
The teacher begins to explain the rules of the test, which I will try my best to pick up on. There are 9 groups, each named after a planet in the solar system.
9? Wait a minute.
I'm kidding, there's 8.
Okay, you scared me.
Each group will have 14 students from random classes. They won't be representing their individual class, they'll represent their group instead. The school will then send an email to one student declaring them to be the VIP. Under a limited time, the group is supposed to figure out who the VIP is and submit their answer to the school.
So it's Among Us?
It's different than Among Us. I mean, you don't kill anyone. Yeah, it's Among Us.
Why even try to defend it?
There are certain specifications that I will skip for now because we're only going to care about who wins and who's going to benefit the most from it. So here we go. Based on each of these scenarios, the points assigned to each class are going to vary. You can either play it safe and win moderately or get selfish and win big, but there are risks to it. Horikita and Ayano are already working together as they confirm that neither of them is a VIP. Ryuen then tries to get comfortable with Horikita, but she has no intentions of letting him know anything. The Mars group is looking pretty interesting. We have a ton of important faces from Class A and the most likable duo in Karuizawa and Ayano. I can see at least 4 people in specs. Gotta say, this is the most smart looking group when you take a quick look at them.
Just because someone wears glasses doesn't mean they're smart. I mean, look at you, for example.
Ichinose is there too, and she has no lack of leadership or initiative since she's been doing that since the very start of the show. She begins to propose ideas on how they're going to deal with this, and she desires to do this collaboratively, obviously, and everyone agrees for now. Class A, on the other hand, doesn't plan to participate in these discussions. They want to do their own thing. Ichinose isn't against this idea, but whenever she points out the flaws in Class A's approach, they want to know what she gains to stand by putting Class B at a disadvantage. Ayano steps out of the room, probably thinking why he exists in the same dimension as these lovers, and he notices something very interesting with Karuizawa. She's about to get bullied by some girls, but is saved by Machida. Ayano, Hideta, and Yukimura have formed a sort of alliance to try and benefit their group. Hideta has had some level of inside information, although it's quite frackin' useless. Literally, everyone's been coming at him calling themselves to be the VIP. He's also gotten an anonymous SMS that says Kushida
Kikita is the VIP. Gonji, on the other hand, has already drowned his group as Jupiter is already done with their test. I suppose he was the VIP and he turned himself in or something, I don't know. Kikita is not happy about what Konji did, but Ayano tells her to calm down and focus on her own group. I mean, his performance does affect their class too, so she's right about being mad. He asks her about Karuizawa, whom he believes could be the VIP. He suspects that this person is putting up a false front, much like they do most of the time. I just can't get over how Ryuen thinks he can do whatever he wants with Nikita and get away with it. They're having a conversation about their plans, and he just shows up and starts sniffing her hair. Why? He's also out on his own little adventure to get as much information as he can. He already knows who the VIPs from his class are, and he intends to win the whole thing in Class C's favor. He proposes an idea to her where he talks about teaming up and crushing Class A, but she's not interested at all. Let's be honest, Ryuen so far has the most snake-like face in the show. No one's gonna trust this fricker. The show is just full of one uncomfortable encounter after another. Here he is bumping into Kushida as she talks about how lonely she feels in this deck full of couples. Yeah? What do you want him to do? Bark?
Not the first thing that came to my mind.
Karuizawa is having an argument with Hideta. She tells him that he needs to do more to protect her. The bullying has been rather harsh. He assures them that he's going to help her, which puts a fake smile on her face that even Ayano would have frowned for just a second there. Yeah, he's eavesdropping on everything. The fake smile quickly fades when Hideta says he can't hurt anyone to protect her. He then reminds her that their relationship is make-believe and they aren't actually a couple. He then goes on to talk to Hideta about this and draws the conclusion that Karuizawa is almost like a parasite. Hideta agrees as he talks about their agreement and how he had promised to be her boyfriend and protect her. Things have been pretty much the same with the Mars group. They have their discussions. Class A doesn't participate, and at this point, even Karuizawa has joined them. Ayano and Yukimura notice that the three girls from before are following Karuizawa, and they seem like they're going to pick a fight. They begin to bully her once again, but Ayano doesn't let Yukimura interfere. Dang, these girls just turned into evil Disney princess moms in a matter of seconds. They seem like decent people defending their friends, but it's just hate and animosity in their faces now. Yukimura is tired of being held back by Ayano and goes on to stop the three of them. The fact that they have the guts to say, "We were just talking," when the entire world could see that they were doing everything but that. He tries to go and help her, but Karuizawa tells poor Yukimura to go away. The Venus group has also ended their round. By the looks of it, Class C is the favorite to win with the most points. He thinks about how Ryuen is trying to figure out the principle behind selecting a VIP, which is troublesome on its own. He then sends a dummy text to Karuizawa posing as Hideta and asks her to be present below the deck. She turns up only to see the three bullies, and this time Rika, the person she's supposed to apologize to, is also there. They don't seem like they're here to talk. They force Rika to slap her as well, just for the fun of it. She's not a big fan of violence until she gets a good slap or two, after which she's suddenly a pro athlete at it. Dang, Rika quickly turned into a horror movie character with just a couple swings. Frick, man. After they're done with her, Ayano goes on to play the savior as if he didn't orchestrate this whole thing anyway. Did he just tell her to spread her legs? Oh, Ayano, I thought you had... What? Is this the plan? Oh my frick, she's actually doing it. What is happening? I did not sign up for this.
That makes one of us.
After talking about how dark this world is and how she's been a victim of it, he tells her that he's going to protect her from now on, but not for free. What does she have to pay with?
You can see where this is going.
He has a recording of the girls bullying him, which establishes his credibility as a much more reliable person than Hidato or Maname. He also knows that she is the VIP, and at that moment, Karuizawa felt something drip down her panties and realized that she needs to change. Oh no. The discussions are finally taking shape with the Mars group. They come to the decision of holding their phone up and revealing their email to see who the VIP is. Amaguchi may be the one saying this, but Ayano knows that this is all under Ichinose orders. Everyone in Class B takes the initiative and starts to show their mail. None of them are the VIP. Ayano shows his phone, and he's not the VIP either. It didn't take long for Yukimura to come out as the VIP, and wasn't this guy acting like he was working with him? Oh wait, no, this is still under Ayano's plan. He told Yukimura that he is the VIP and convinced him into this whole act. He then traded his cell phone with him so that he could come up with clarity. I suppose Ayano was the VIP then. Ichinose calls the number and the phone, and Yukimura's hand begins to ring. The only problem is that she called Ayano's number. With this act done, everyone berates Class D for being such liars, and the discussions are now over. We move on to the real plan now, where Ayano explains how he had already traded cell phones with Karuizawa, which made him convince Yukimura that he was the VIP. As for the number, you can't really change the SIM card, but then points can buy you anything in this school, and Ayano used this to do just that. Despite all this effort from Ayano and the gang, they all received the news that Class C has won the whole thing, and it was all thanks to Kushida being a mole on Class D's side. We now have a new gang that is discussing the aftermath of this test. Hideta is here with Ayano, Horikita, and Karuizawa to talk about how Class C played them all. I still want to believe that this is all under Ayano's vision, but then again, he can't control everything, can he? They also figure out the principle behind the VIP system, which is so simple that I don't even want to talk about it. It basically has to do with the position of each planet in the solar system. They're out of the ship and back to school, and the teacher announces that the second term begins now. They already have instructions as to what they're gonna do next, and they'll be focusing mostly on gym classes thanks to the sports festival. One of the students asks if the sports festival is also a test, which is so dumb. How long have you been in the school, bro? Everything is a test here. And you think a competitive scene like a sports festival wouldn't be one? Class D is teamed up with Class A, and they'll be representing the red side, which is so foul, it's as if they don't want Class A to be dethroned at all. The positions in the sports festival will directly affect their test scores in the future, which means they better do well. The bottom 10 will be receiving a big penalty, as 10 points will be taken off their score in the next exam. The activities for the sports festival are quite hardcore, but the teachers don't intend to go soft at all. Ayano and Horikita have their usual conversation about what they're going to do next, and there's nothing much to talk about. They just have to prepare a lot since sports is mostly stamina and athleticism.
Both things you lack incredibly.
Pseudo is the most fired up student from Class D, as you can imagine, since this is the only time he can actually be useful. Horikita suggests that they should form a team of athletic and unathletic individuals to find a balance, but the rest of the class doesn't agree. Some of them want individual success rather than an ultimate victory, and Katawazawa receives a quick text from Ayano and quickly objects to what Horikita has to say, painting her as a cruel person. Hirata tries to calm the class and opts for a vote. 10 votes for Horikita and 8 votes for Katawazawa to settle the deal, and Ayano refrains from voting for anyone. She later meets with Ayano to discuss what the text was about, as she was already in agreement with what Horikita had to say. He doesn't tell her everything, but does say that during the sports festival, Class D will produce a traitor, and he's gonna be on the lookout for them. The boys are testing their grip strength, and Pseudo scores a whopping 80. He asks Ayano to do one too, and he makes sure to hold back. He scores 60, which Pseudo told him was the average, but he later finds out that it is on the higher side. Horikita and Ayano try the three-legged race, and for a moment she talks big as if she was going to outpace him, but quickly sees how helpless she really is. Ayano has already told her that Kushida was the mole last time, and they need to be wary of her as if it's something new. He wants to know what the reason is why she did it. Since Horikita and Kushida have a bit of a history, he wants her to be the one to initiate talks regarding this. I mean, he doesn't actually tell her to go and do it, but Horikita is smart enough to understand. They decide to take a seat beside her, where Kushida is already being a nasty woman with the most angelic voice and face. Horikita is straight with her questions. She wants to know if Kushida was the one who leaked information to Ryuen during the planet's test. Kushida denies it at first and makes the case that she wants to work with them to reach Class A. Pseudo better turn up and win everything, judging by how much he's been talking since the last episode. Everyone has their attention on Horikita though, as he stands posing like he's the most cool person ever. Pseudo tries to convince Koenji to join their activities, but he has no interest in doing so. He says that he's feeling sick. Yeah, that's the face of a sick man. Here we are in the first sporting event, and Pseudo gets his fracking butt kicked. Quite literally kicked. That was the reason why he was talking so big. If that wasn't bad enough, Horikita has hurt her leg and needs bandages. She still says that it won't hinder her performance, but are you fracking kidding me? That most definitely will. She's also tried to continue her talks with Koenji to have him join the activities, and that hasn't turned out well either. Pseudo is on the sidelines watching his class get completely obliterated, and all he can do is grit his teeth. Well, even when he was on the pitch, there was not much anything he was gonna do, so there's that. Horikita and her team lose again, and this time Pseudo is the one who goes to console her. He goes out once again to get bodied by Ryuen, who's not playing fair, and I'm wondering why they're getting so hyper-fixated on playing clean. If he punches you, punch him back! Ayano believes that their participation list was leaked, and Ryuen got his hands on it, which is why he is so ahead of Class D, because he knows where each person will be. His plan now is to do nothing, since he had no interest in winning in the first place. Pseudo, as we all suspected, is losing his cool and acting like a total fracking kid. He even goes as far as to punch Hideta when Yukimura calls him out for trying to hog all the spotlight. He decides to leave after that incident, and Horikita's face starts to get more and more hopeless. Ayano has heard enough at this point, and he calls her useless. Yes, to her face, he calls her useless. He gives her a subtle hint to use the people around her to get her away. Ryuen is already planning another scheme as he blames Horikita for injuring one of his students from his class. They have even faked an injury to her leg, all in an attempt to frame Horikita. Of all the people that have come to Horikita's aid, I did not expect Kushida to be the one. It's such a wrong sight. He does give her a proposition. She'll have to pay him 1 million points to get out of this mess. In short, he completely played with her and she walked right into his trap. I forgot she even had a cool older brother to deal with who loves to rub it in her face. Not in the wrong way, shut up. It's Horikita's redemption arc from here on out, and the first thing she does is to go back and pursue Pseudo. I can't understand why they don't gang up on him and start to beat him to a bloody pulp. Where does all this arrogance come from? He softens up a little and talks about how he wanted to be in the spotlight exactly the way Yukimura said. Ayano is already starting to play his cards, and he directly confronts Kushida for being the traitor that leaked the information on Class D. She tries to defend her case, but my boy came plenty prepared to prove that she was indeed the traitor. It doesn't take long for her to admit it was her, but then she begins to threaten her about his fingerprints on her uniform. He does know that he can't reveal her as the traitor. Her goal is to make sure Horikita is expelled from the school, and now he just has made the list too. She has no problem selling out Class D to do that. Horikita is still having a talk with Pseudo about how they'll be able to fix this, and he still doesn't want any part of it. How did she manage to pursue him with that cheap speech, though? That is something I will never understand. He goes on to apologize to the rest of the class, who take him back almost instantly because they know how incapable they are on their own. One of them even drops out of the marathon, after which Ayano volunteers to participate in his stead. He's standing aside from the president and exchanging some really passive-aggressive words. The two begin their own race, and Ayano actually keeps up with the president. In fact, he looks confident enough to win. Despite the supposed tease, Ayano chose to lose, and the president ended up winning the race. Horikita goes on to confront Ryuen about the silly proposition that he made to her. Kushida's there too, and Horikita feels like it's a perfect chance to leave them with a warning and a challenge. Kushida drops her fake personality, and things start to get heated in an instant. They begin to drop some really intrinsic details, and Horikita tries to blackmail them with a voice recorder, which is something Ryuen already saw, as he has records of his own. He asks her to grovel before him, but then gets a message from an unknown number, which completely turns the tides away from him.